What up? It's your boy T-Bird Reaction. Today is music reaction. Now we about to get into some videos from the homie L Train of Luke Kitchen as well. We're gonna take a look at one of my favorite producers. That definitely is the hip hop's go-to producer as well too. Best and one of the kings of the drumless samples as well too though. The one only Alchemist. So this is how the Alchemist came hip hop's go-to producer as well too. Yo, he's definitely the underground king though. A lot of people has while he stemmed from other producers in the past such as DJ Premier and many others of the boom bap area. He definitely brought out some offsprings himself in productions and games too, such as like Derringer of these Griselda and many others too. So without further ado, let's check out this story about the one only Alchemist from L Train. Let's get it.
By the time most producers are still trying to get their first placement, the Alchemist had already been signed to a big hip-hop label, toured with Cypress Hill, and was quietly figuring out how the music industry really worked. Over the last 3 decades, he's become one of the most trusted producers in hip-hop, working with Mobb Deep, Nas, and Eminem before pivoting away from the industry to build a label entirely on his own terms. But how does a white Jewish kid from Beverly Hills become one of hip-hop's most respected producers? To understand, we need to go back
to find what he was, what that was when he was like real young.
Los Angeles in the early 1990s. Alan Mammon was born in Los Angeles in 1977, growing up in Beverly Hills, about as far from hip-hop's traditional entry points as you could get. But his interest in music showed up early.
We used to have like a piano in the house. I used to go over there and try to sound little things out. I think my mom saw early on that I was into it, and so she tried to give me piano lessons. You know, piano lessons is not what's up. So I fought it, but I did it.
For a young Al coming from outside the culture, radio became his entry point. And in Los Angeles, that meant the legendary K-Day.
We were listening to fucking AM radio in LA because they played all the great shit. Like, that's the first time I heard top billing from Audio 2.
Milk is chillin', Giz is chillin'. What more can I say? Top billing.
That's the first time I heard Craig Mack when he was Easy.
Please shut your lip back. Listen to it today. May sound like a cliche, but like Frank Sinatra.
If you ain't know about that, yeah, Craig Mack was known as MC Troop. Yeah, I know it's called Just Rhyme. The one that they playing sound like Get Retarded. But probably
it was a place for kids in LA, at least, or people to just hear. Back then, there was no way to hear shit like that. I really got hip to a lot of records.
Around him, there was a loose network forming, drawn together by rap, graffiti, and hip-hop.
My first stages were rapping, just straight jacking your favorite rapper's verse. I would memorize a rhyme, change a couple of words, put my name in it. Then I connected with my man, Scott.
We
were all doing graffiti. We were all being bad kids. We were all making rap. Scott knew this kid, Evidence. He was already rapping with Will. I am. Ooh. Evidence lived in Venice. His neighbor was Quincy Jones.
QD3, wow. Damn. What a connection right there. Like, I knew about him and Scott Conn because they became the Hooligans, but Evidence, I knew him in this type like that, but then I know they was cool with not only Will I Am, QD3. That's crazy.
Like, yo, I'm gonna bring you and Scott to meet Q. That was some of my first times watching music be made.
Scott, coincidentally the son of actor James Caan, and Al decided to join forces. Al went under the name Mudfoot, while Scott performed as Mad Skills.
We created the Hooligans, and Q took a liking to us.
From there, they began working on a full album. Executive produced by none other than Cypress Hill's Be Real.
I first met these dudes through our manager, Amanda Demi. She says, I got these 2 kids. They're pretty fucking good. You want to hear them? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Turns out to be Al and Scott. And this dude had bar work at like 13, 14 years old. And I was very impressed.
And then I hit the loose leaf if you got beef with my crew. There were a couple dogs for protection.
And while the album was still taking shape, they were invited to join Cypress Hill and House of Pain on their tour.
In 1993, the Soul Assassin tour happened. We had got signed. We didn't even have an album out yet, and we just got thrusted on this United States tour. Cypress was on top of the world. Soul Assassins was like huge.
Back off tour and riding high, they were quickly brought back down to earth when Tommy Boy decided to shelve the project entirely.
Tommy Boy got cold feet because there were 2 little white kids in a time where white kids weren't necessarily being fully accepted. You had to be stamped by somebody. I don't think Tommy Boy thought that because of where they came from, that any stamp was going to be enough for him.
Tommy ain't my boy, damn.
At 15, Al had already seen how quickly momentum could disappear, and it was his first real lesson in how the industry actually worked. But along the way, he'd already been introduced to a few people that would help to shape what came next. The Hooligans deal didn't last, but it opened a door. Through the Soul Assassins camp, Al was allowed to stick around, helping Cypress Hill on tour, doing whatever was needed.
When the Buddha used to blow up on stage for Cypress, I was the one shaking it. I had to blow it up. That was one of my jobs on tour.
It wasn't glamorous, but it put him around people already operating at the highest level.
I had this manager, and they was like, so we got this little rap group. 2 little white kids from Beverly Hills. And I was like, get that bullshit the fuck out of here. Then I met Al, and I was like, oh, this kid's cool as fuck. He reminds me of me. Tenacious fucking worker. And just the love and the fucking, and smart, and just work and work and work.
And it was those qualities that led to Muggs keeping a young Alchemist around the camp.
I'm gonna give this kid access and let him be around. I'm gonna just cut all this shit you have to go through and just put you right here. You with the biggest group in the world now, in the studio, going on tour. Because I knew all he needed to do is be around it. He's such a fucking smart kid and such a sponge. You'll figure it out.
The access became an education. And when Alchemist decided to switch to behind the boards, it was House of Pain's DJ Lethal that took him to get his first piece of gear.
I remember Lethal took me to Guitar Center and I wanted to buy the SP because everybody had the SP12. He's like, just buy this. It looked like a keyboard. I didn't play piano, but he just said, trust me, it does the same thing. And that's
the ASR.
Kind of, I developed my style with the ASR 10.
Yep.
At the time, Cypress Hill were working on their 3rd album, and Al was in the room for all of it.
I would sleep on Muggs' couch, and we would just work on beats. I was really good with the ASR 10, so that was like my job. And I had a good ear, so he would give me boxes of records. I would find samples and like pull them up on the ASR and maybe chop some or maybe make like a halfway of a beat. But he wouldn't let me do the drums. He didn't trust my drums.
In a sense, this was a full apprenticeship, working with some of the best producers in the game, honing his craft.
I did a lot on that album. When it came out, I didn't really have a credit on it. I didn't mind because I knew it wasn't my position. I didn't have a name yet. And Muggs was paying me well, keeping me in the mix. And it was a great opportunity.
Nice. He'd built up a wealth of experience working with some of the West Coast's biggest stars. But without a name of his own, he knew he couldn't stay there forever. After years of learning by proximity in Los Angeles, Al made a clean break, moving across the country to New York, enrolling at NYU.
Hold on a second. I'm bad, let's keep going.
And for the first time, he was out on his own.
I did 2 years at NYU. I was doing that little bit of producing for the High and Mighty or the Fall Iron Dilated.
Okay.
I was set up in the dorm originally, and we would just be making beats and trying to figure out a sound.
At the time, he had support from his parents, but he was determined to stand on his own 2 feet.
My parents were giving me like $1,000 a month to survive. At the time I was selling the weed with my roommates, I worked long enough to save 10 months worth of those checks. Once I had like 10 grand in a bank account, I remember like calling my parents going, yeah, I'm good from here. It's a blessing in the world to have family that could help, but then it also made me want to feel what it would be like on my own.
The school itself was never the end goal. Just being in New York, the epicenter of hip hop, was what motivated him.
I sat with the advisor who was like, all right, you got to pick a major now. I was like, I don't really know what I want to pick, but I'm doing a lot of music. I showed her everything. I told her what was up. She was like, you know what? If you want to give it a shot and you think you could make it work, then try. And you can always come back after a semester if it's not working.
In New York, Al learned pretty quickly that proximity to those big artists came in different forms.
I used to sell weed to D'Angelo. Premier hooked me up with him when I first moved to New York. Premier was like, can you, bring some weed? He was like, when you go there, don't have anything in your hand. I walked in, gave him a pound. I'm like, yeah, Premier. He said, oh, that's what's up. So gave me another pound. Everything I said, I had to give him a dap. And then I understood what Premier said.
At the same time, he was quietly sharpening his production, contributing beats for artists like Dilated Peoples.
This club of lane, punch out, this piston hurricane. When this is done, things will never be the same.
And the High and Mighty.
The live round flow, kick like Taekwondo. Dine with the bomb show, let the Messiah shine glow. Off for 20.
While still figuring out his own style.
I was now honing my production craft. And I'm not like some of these guys who are like, your first beats are the beats people have heard. I had a lot of time to develop my style, where it was like I was just imitating Premier. I didn't have my sound yet.
However, it wasn't long before Al was introduced to one of New York's dopest crews, a moment that would define his next chapter. Breaking through in New York meant showing up night after night in studios and offices where the artists were working.
You had to be physically out there. There was no email. Staying home and making beats was like the one part of it, but straight up running up in the studio, making my own phone calls. I needed to be on as many albums as possible, and I needed a name tag. Alchemist. As producers, we were like salesmen.
However, it was through his connection to Muggs that he was introduced to a group that would prove pivotal.
Muggs had worked with them on his album, so we linked up. I would like always come there. He would not be there. Havoc would be there. And they'd be like, play me some shit. And I had this one dad, played him a bunch of beats. I like this one beat.
Like, yo, who the fuck is this guy? How is he making such good beats? The shit was fire.
Prodigy, on the other hand, was more suspicious of this unfamiliar figure showing up around the group.
I thought Alchemist, I thought he was a Fed. I thought they sent the Feds in to investigate.
Wow.
I was like, yo, so hold on a minute. When did you figure out that I'm not the police? You were like, when I seen you make a beat, son.
With Havoc's cosign, Prodigy gave Al a chance.
I would come back 2 days later, and then P would be there. And then I would play that same dat for P, and he'd be like, I like this one beat. It was the realest. A month or so later was when P called me and said, yo, bring that beat through, son. Walk in the room, and then G-Rap is just sitting there.
The record became the realest.
Okay.
Alchemist's first official production for Mobb Deep.
Oh, this joint, yup.
Followed by Thug Music, both taken from Mobb's Murder Music album.
When I did the realest for Mobb Deep, I was very insecure about it because it was just a loop. And at the time, that was kind of like risky. Oh, you just looped a 2-bar loop. You didn't add your own drums and spice. But to this day, that's one of my best records of all time. And I had to grow to understand. It's just having the knowledge of knowing when to do what.
That connection with Mobb Deep marked a turning point, placing Alchemist in rooms.
Yep, and there you go. That's, I say, one of the OG's drumless samples right there. That's definitely one of the
he hadn't had access to before.
I can pretty much put my career on a timeline of before Mobb Deep, after Mobb Deep.
I remember walking into Hav's crib when he used to live in Freeport. Walked down into the basement one day. All of a sudden, Nas walked in. That's the first day I met Nas. I was making the beat for TikTok. Nas walked down and was like, yo, I can rhyme to this?
With double XL, pin sagging, blunts dragging.
It feels imagery, yo.
During this period, Alchemist spent long hours in the studio with Mobb, taking in absolutely everything.
I learned so much from Havoc, like drum programming.
Nice.
I just say that to say, like, I used to sit there and just absorb. Both Premier and Havoc are in my DNA.
By the early 2000s, Alchemist was in demand, producing records for Jay.
Shout out to Prodigy's daughter, who's doing her thing in beat-wise and her rap as well too, though. But she's if you check her out, Santana, what's her name again? Yeah, she's nice though on the beats though. Nice looking too, but she's nice on the beats though. Yeah, Santana Fox, check her out. She's nice on the beats too. I think she learned a lot from her uncle Havoc and probably a little bit from Uncle Al too.
Ada Kiss.
Yes! Yes! My joy!
Ghostface Killer.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
And more. But there was still one milestone he hadn't reached.
I was producing for years, and I'd never made an album. The producers that I was raised off of, like Pete Rock, Premier, Muggs, these dudes, the way that they became popular as producers was they produced albums that were classics first. And then people sought after their production. So I was like, I want to make an album.
And for this project, he wouldn't just be producing. It also marked a return to rapping. First Infantry established Alchemist as an artist.
When the time is worse, never
oh yeah, hold you down, yo.
I'm dying first, never to my last dollar, I'm grinding first.
Soon after, a connection through his former lawyer, Paul Rosenberg, brought him into Eminem's orbit, where he was asked to join the tour as his DJ.
Getting out on the road with M and seeing these fucking crowds, it's like, holy shit. On the stage when I'm rocking, and it would just open my mind up to a whole other level of shit. So it was like, I gotta give him a lot of props for even reaching out, putting me in that position.
After almost 2 decades in the industry, Alchemist has seen both the benefits and the limitations of the major label system. In the early 2010s, he decided to move back to Los Angeles, a decision that helped shape the next phase of his career. All right, quick pause before we carry on. One of Alchemist's biggest inspirations to mine for samples has always been library music. Our latest Loop Kitchen sample pack, Aperitivo, is heavily inspired by those 50s, 60s, and 70s library records. They're melodic, cinematic samples perfect to flip, chop, and reshape in your own way. And this beat was made using one of the samples from the pack. At the moment, all our packs are buy one, get one free using the code COVERT coupon at checkout. Plus, we've also got a couple of free packs you can grab as well. And if you make beats and want somewhere to share your stuff, get feedback, or just talk music, we've got a Discord full of friendly producers and music lovers. And all of the links for those are in the description. Anyway, back to the story. Back in Los Angeles and out of the day-to-day New York hustle, Alchemist found himself working in a different environment. Al jumped in the studio with Currency, and it was during those sessions he realized there was a different way of working.
He came over to do a song, and we did 2 that day. And he wanted to drop them that night, and that blew my mind.
Sorry.
Like, these songs are too good. Let's keep working. I'm gonna stay in LA. Fast forward, we made a whole album. There was some complications why we couldn't put it out through the label. And then Currency called me and was like, yo, I just want to put it out. I'm just gonna put it out for free. He said, well, look, doing this collab with Diamond Capsule, we can make it a co-recoup capsule, and I'll give you the bread. And I just took a risk.
Oh yeah, this joint, this one here, yes. Whew. This mixtape here was tough.
Left on the bitch who can't find the right mind. We can pass
the speed.
That's my favorite version too. That's my favorite joint too. Smoke break.
Reshape how Alchemist worked. Years of work with established artists had quietly built his reputation. Now that reputation was reaching a whole new generation.
I started meeting this new generation of kids who grew up off that shit. Action, Mac Miller, Schoolboy Q, Earl, Damo Genesis, Danny Brown. This new batch of artists who were coming up, and I realized, damn, this is dope because they know me for what I did. So I can just be me.
Oh yeah, the joint Alchemist did for Damo Genesis mixtape was tough too.
There's the studio, and we just kept the barbecue going for a whole week. Those were the early stages of where I'm at now. To me, that's like the whole phase 2 of my career.
Around this time, a conversation with producer Knowledge introduced Alchemist to a different way of releasing music.
I give a lot of credit to Knowledge. He had his Bandcamp page. And he'd like pull up his Bandcamp page and it'd just be like 50 artworks of his album covers. And he kind of pushed me over to like finally doing it. I made a Bandcamp page and I put out a project called French Blends. And it was just instrumentals. And I sold it for like 20 bucks. And the next day it was going straight to the PayPal. And I can't explain to you how it felt.
For Alchemist, independence became a system. Direct, repeatable, and sustainable.
You know, when you're playing a video game and you kind of playing it good and you turn the speed up or put it on a more advanced level, it's starting to feel like that. We got the rinse and repeat formula in the last 5-10 years of just doing records with different artists like Bodie James or Rock Morrissey or Action Bronson. It just feels like we in motion.
Over the last decade, Alchemist has released a steady run of collaborative projects, working closely with artists like Freddie Gibbs,
Scamming niggas maxing out, ratchet bitches acting out. God made me sell crack, so I had something to rap about.
Larry June.
I'm still standing on my word, I've been grand scheming. Took a trip to the Shire after I left Cleveland.
Action Bronson.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't born with De Niro. Somehow I turned into De Niro.
And West Side Gun.
Hey yo!
Being able to create catalog under my own label.
I had to do it.
Fuck the music industry. And just be honest, like, it's a headache. It's a fucking disgusting industry. I'm banging shit out, doing shit at my rate, tapped into a fan base that I'm directly connected through. So in that aspect, it's like I bailed out of the industry.
And over time, Alchemist began to see his role less as the centerpiece and more as someone creating space for artists to shine.
Production is secondary to me. Raps are everything. I always try to figure out when I'm working with an artist, what is the type of bed they want to lay on. You know how you go in a hotel and you got those nice plush beds and you jump on the bed and you sink into the top of it and it just wraps around you? That's how I try to make a beat. It's just there for the MC to shine on.
From entering the game as a rapper at 15, to working with some of hip-hop's biggest artists, to building his own label and releasing independently, Alchemist's career has taken a path few producers ever manage. And if his story shows anything, it's that there's more than one way to succeed in the music industry. And if you want to see more stories like this, check out our Behind the Records series in the playlist on screen, exploring the producers, albums, machines, and samples that shaped hip-hop history.
Yeah, definitely a good video right here as well, dude. Shout out to L Train putting on some more hip artists that we know as well too, but in the whole story behind everything, as well as, you know, showing us the way of doing it in their style as well too. Other than that, if you like my reaction, like, share, subscribe my YouTube channel. It's your boy T-Bird signing off. One love.